Hey, so I've been reading a lot about the Texas Stock Exchange and got some questions about it. And it's not otherwise groundbreaking. And there's a lot of like misconception because it's digital, but that doesn't mean it has anything to do with blockchain, right? What's unique about it is that it's an attempt to basically circumnavigate NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange as a major exchange. And with the Texas Stock Exchange having gained approval, one, it can facilitate the trades of securities of all types, but it can also create its own listing rules, right? And that's where it's really unique and potentially valuable, okay? Because you see different like rules. Recently, I think it was last week or the week before, NASDAQ trying to get rid of securities under 10 cents, things like that, right? Listing requirements, you think about OTC, which isn't itself an exchange, but it's close, where there's requirements for maintaining and different reporting obligations, stuff like that. New York Stock Exchange, they have rules that relate to board composition that are really like DEI driven and stuff like that. Well, Texas can like just create whatever rules it wants, provided those rules don't run afoul of like federal securities laws. And obviously they have to compete with NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange to draw the listings of valuable companies, right? And that's obviously going to be the challenge. But what the approach is, which I really like, is that it's going to have different tiers of listings and different qualifications, which by all accounts are going to be much lower and much easier to comply with than the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, or even OTC, which again isn't in itself like an exchange per se, right? So it's unique. It's not blockchain based, but it aims to be a hub for tech companies, right? By offering an ease of listing, IPO, things of that nature, which, while not yet necessarily promulgated, because I think they're not going to launch with actual trading until 2026, now that they have approval, they can start promulgating those actual rules and the fees associated with it, which is a big thing. They can set their own fees, right? NASDAQ's fees are otherworldly at the moment. Well, these Texas Stock Exchange can do whatever it wants, and that's the value. It's not the value that it's all digital, right? It's just doing something that's already outdated, like the New York Stock Exchange is sort of for show, but it's doing something that conceivably, if done right, which conceivably it would allow for easier access to the public markets, which like burgeoning tech companies and the like could take advantage of by offering investors liquidity, right? And the liquidity comes by trading. And obviously the biggest test, right? And you see this like in Canada when they have the CSX and all these other things, they have the Canadian National Exchange and all these other things. You need enough traders on the market trading those securities to make it viable. In the absence of, and I spoke about this in my last video on reverse mergers, in the absence of a viable trading market, a liquid trading market, meaning a lot of people changing shares, right? Hands changing shares. The problem is you just run into this thing where you have wild up and down pricing, and in almost all instances, those companies would be better off just being private, not having to bear any cost, no matter how low, and not having to have any reporting obligations, right? So that's really what to look out for, right? Like, and the misnomers and like the Bitcoin friendly, that's fine. They can list blockchain related companies, but that doesn't mean the exchange itself is based on blockchain, although it would be very wise for an exchange to be so. So that's just a quick thought that came up to my mind I want to talk about in terms of the Texas Stock Exchange. So you know where to find me, adamtracy.io. Talk to you next time. Cheers.